Eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Can you get my bag? We'll say these Sanskrit prayers and the translations together, please. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudirayat. Before reciting this, thank you. Respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance, Nasta Prayashu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. In loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master very kindly forced open my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I am eternally indebted to him, and I beg for service life after life. Hare Krishna. Welcome to Srimad Bhagavatam class on this lovely Friday morning. Thank you all for coming, for being here. We are reading in Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3. We're in chapter 31. This is teachings from Lord Kapila Dev to his mother Devahuti, and right now he's talking about the movements of the living entities. So can somebody please give us a refresher on what we've been hearing about these past couple of days? Yes. Oh, we have a mic. It's coming.
Hare Krishna.
We've been hearing about the experience of the baby in the womb, that whole process and what they endure, and the prayers that the embryo prays. Basically a lot of suffering in the womb, and then the process of taking birth again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy how much and how vivid these his words are about the suffering of the child in the womb. We never think about that, when we see a pregnant woman, or, we think, wow, such a beautiful thing this is life. And it is, but it's also suffering for the baby and for the mother in many ways. Thank you. We also heard in the last class from yesterday that the child actually within the womb, if they're fortunate, then through all their suffering and all their pain, they get a moment of clear consciousness. They can understand, oh my gosh, my Lord Krishna, what have I done? I've ended up back here in this place of suffering. And in this clear consciousness, this soul decides to take shelter of the Lord completely and surrender to the Lord. So we're going to hear a little bit more about that. We're going to read through verses 22 through 31 today, and we're going to focus in on 29, read the purport in Sanskrit for that one. But we'll read through the verses now. I want to pass the mic around.
Text 22. Lord Kapila continued,
The 10-month-old living entity has these desires even while in the womb. But while he thus extols the Lord, the wind that helps parturition propels him forth, with his face turned downward that he may be born.
Pushed downward all of a sudden by the wind, the child comes out with great trouble, head downward, breathless, and deprived of memory due to severe agony.
The child thus falls on the ground, smeared with stool and blood, and plays just like a worm. Germinated from the stool, he loses his superior knowledge and cries under the spell of Maya.
After coming out of the abdomen, the child is given to the care of persons who are unable to understand what he wants, and thus he is nursed by such persons. Unable to refuse whatever is given to him, he falls into undesirable circumstances.
Lay down on a foul bed, infested with sweat and germs. The poor child is incapable of scratching his body to get relief from his itching sensation, to say nothing of sitting up, standing, or moving.
In his helpless condition, gnats, mosquitoes, bugs, and other germs bite the baby, whose skin is tender, just as a smaller worm bite a big worm. The child, deprived of his wisdom, cries bitterly.
In this way, the child passes through the childhood, suffering different kinds of distress, and attains boyhood. In boyhood also, he suffers pain over desires to get things he can never achieve, and thus due to ignorance he becomes angry and sorry.
With the growth of the body, the living entity, in order to vanquish his soul, increases his false prestige and anger, and thereby creates enmity towards similarly lusty people.
By such ignorance, the living entity accepts the material body, which is made of 5 elements, as himself. With this misunderstanding, he accepts non-permanent things as his own and increases his ignorance in the darkest region.
For the sake of the body, which is a source of constant trouble to him, and which follows him because he is bound by the ties of ignorance and fruitive activities, he performs various actions which cause him to be subjected to repeated birth and death.
Wow, what an ending on our section of verses. After all of this suffering, all of this pain he endured, from being in the womb to being born and then not being able to express himself properly, experiencing all of these he says misunderstandings and accepting non-permanent things as his own, and just suffering. After all of this, after all of these actions which these things cause him to perform, he's subjected to repeated birth and death again and again and again. This is the life of a gross materialist. And so this class is relevant to us because we are practicing devotees, but many of us, not all I'm sure, but many of us still have a gross materialist inside of ourselves that can relate to these things, that can relate to trying to seek permanent happiness in temporary things, and mistaking the body as the self, This misidentification is what causes samsara, this birth and death, again and again having to experience the same thing because we didn't learn our lesson. So let's go to verse 29.
With the growth
Sahadehena manena Sahadehena manena Vardamanena manyuna Vardamanena manyuna Karoti vigraham kami Karoti vigraham kami Kamishvat vantaya chatmanaha Kamishvantaya chatmanaha Sahadehena manena Vardamanena manyuna Karoti vigraham kami Kamishvantaya chatmana. Please repeat. Please recite. Sahadehena manena Vardamanena manyuna Karoti vigraham kami
Kameshu antya chatmanaha
Kamishvantaya chatmana. One more. Sahadehena manena Vardamanena manyuna Karoti vigraham kami Kamishvantaya chatmana. Okay, we'll read the word for word together since we can all see it at the same time. Saha, with, dehena, the body, manena, with false prestige, vardamanena, increasing, manyuna, on account of anger, karoti, he creates, vigraham, enmity, kami, the lusty person, kamishu, towards other lusty people, antaya, for destruction, cha, and, atmana, of his soul. And we can read the translation together also. With the growth of the body, the living entity, in order to vanquish his soul, increases his false prestige and anger, and thereby creates enmity towards similarly lusty people. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, verse 36, Arjuna inquired from Krishna about the cause of a living being's lust. It is said that a living entity is eternal, and as such, qualitatively one with the Supreme Lord. Then what is the reason he falls prey to the material and commits so many sinful activities by the influence of the material energy? In reply to this question, Lord Krishna said that it is lust which causes a living entity to glide down from his exalted position to the abominable condition of material existence. This lust circumstantially changes into anger. Both lust and anger stand on the platform of the mode of passion. Lust is actually the product of the mode of passion, and in the absence of satisfaction of lust, the same desire transforms into anger on the platform of ignorance. When ignorance covers the soul, it is the source of his degradation to the most abominable condition of hellish life. Prabhupada is about to lift our spirits a little bit. To raise oneself from hellish life to the highest position of spiritual understanding is to transform this lust into love of Krishna. Sri Narottam Das Thakur, a great acharya of the Vaishnava Sampradaya, said, Kama Krishna Kamarpane. Due to our lust, We want many things for our sense gratification. But the same lust can be transformed in a purified way so that we want everything for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anger can also be utilized towards a person who is atheistic or who is envious of the personality of Godhead. As we have fallen into this material existence because of our lust and anger, the same two qualities can be utilized for the purpose of advancing in Krishna consciousness, and one can elevate himself again to his former pure spiritual position. Srila Rupa Goswami has therefore recommended that because in material existence we have so many objects of sense gratification, which we need for the maintenance of the body, so many objects of sense gratification, which we need for the maintenance of the body, we should use all of them without attachment for the purpose of satisfying the senses of Krishna. That is actual renunciation. Jai Prabhupada. That is quite an amazing purport. It's wonderful how he took that out of this section. This section has been some of it's been a little disturbing to the mind, a little gross, a little confusing, disheartening sometimes. But out of this verse, which is also still pretty on the like, oh man, on the downside, Srila Prabhupada brings it up in the purport and gives us something to hope for and to aspire for. I wanted to go back a little bit. So Srila Prabhupada, in the purport, he's talking about the cause of the living being's lust. Can somebody please tell me what the first cause of the living being's lust is? I'm thinking of the Bhagavad Gita verse. Of what? Contemplation of the objects of the senses. That leads to attachment, which leads to lust and anger and delusion, bewilderment of memory, lost intelligence, and then samsara, which is what we were hearing about throughout these verses. All of this eventually just continues the cycle. But why do we contemplate the sense objects? Why do we focus so heavily on the objects of the senses?
This is about to die. Hare Krishna. Prabhupada, he quotes the verse a lot. I believe it's Ananda Mayo Yavsat. But basically the soul is always seeking pleasure. And so because we don't know where to get it from, we go to the nearest source that we think will give us pleasure.
Right. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Yes, Prabhu.
The goat has nipples on his neck, and the goat has nipples on the udders. So we're going to the nipples on the neck.
Yeah.
Out of ignorance.
We can't get milk from those. Exactly. Both of you hit it on the head. You have another thought? Oh, you're just changing the batteries. Okay. Yeah, both of you got this is the first point that I want to make in today's class, out of 3. All suffering is due to ignorance. Ignorance of the true nature of the self, which is Satchit Ananda, eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss naturally. And then ignorance of what is truly going to satisfy us, like the person who's milking the nipples on the neck of the goat rather than the udders, or teats. We're confused, we're ignorant of what we actually need to be happy. And that what we actually need to be happy is spiritual sense gratification. And it's still sense gratification. It still feels good. It still tastes good when we take Krishna Prasadam. It still sounds good when we hear, wonderful kirtan with beautiful ragas and cool beats on the mridanga. It still feels good when we spend time with our devotee friends and we hug the bodies of our devotee friends and we engage all of our senses in this way. So this brings me to the second point of today's class, which Srila Prabhupada brought up in the purport, which is dovetailing. We can dovetail most things in Krishna's service as long as they're not breaking the regulative principles. We can even dovetail, the 6 enemies of the soul: lust, anger, greed, pride, illusion, envy. Did I repeat any of them? That was 6, right? We can dovetail these 6 enemies. How amazing is that? And it's actually, I feel so grateful that I got this verse, because recently I was writing in my journal. Sometimes I like to do a Bhagavad Gita like prayer reflection for myself, and one of the prayers that I had was to Krishna, just let me transform my greed that I have in this material world for material things into loyam, agreed to receive your mercy, agreed to have a relationship with you. Let me transform my envy into transcendental, good-hearted competitiveness, to serve you better and better than I did, serve you better than I did yesterday. Let me do better and better. We can transform all of these seemingly lower things into Krishna service. This is exactly what Prabhupada is saying. What were the examples that he gave? Can you remember an example that Srila Prabhupada gave without looking at the purport? Yes, go ahead.
Let's see. I believe Prabhupada said in the purport that you can use your anger like directed towards atheistic persons who are against the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yeah, or like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said, he gave us the verse Trinadapi Sunichena. We should always be so humble, lower than a blade of grass, tolerant of any situation. But when Mahaprabhu saw that there was a person hurting his brother or his devotee, Lord Nityananda, he got extremely angry. This is the only time he pulled out his weapon, as far as I know, in Gaura Lila, was to defend Lord Nityananda. So he exhibited anger in defense of the devotees. So there are reasons why we need to exhibit anger sometimes. And then he had one more example in the purport that he gave. It's another one of the 6 enemies. Lust. How do we dovetail our lust? How did he say?
I don't know.
You don't remember exactly what he said. That's okay.
To gratify Krishna's senses.
Yeah, so we're lusting after all of these things for I, me, and mine. But when we serve the deities, we can see, we could go walk around in a flower field and think, oh, I want to wear these flowers. I want to enjoy these flowers. These flowers would look so pretty in my hair. But devotees, even people that just come to the temple one time, they might start to think, and when they see a pretty flower, oh, that flower would look really pretty on Radha Kalachandji. You know, these sparkles are so beautiful on Radha Kalachandji. Oh, how am I going to paint Radha Kalachandji's face today? We start to think of, it becomes a meditation. It becomes perfect and pure completely. It becomes something that will grant us eternal life rather than samsara. So this is Prabhupada's great mercy to us, is that he gave us the opportunity to have this knowledge. He brought us this knowledge that will destroy our ignorance, destroy our relationship with the mundane, temporary, material things of this world. Okay, so these topics that I'm talking about, it sounds, maybe it sounds simple when you say it out loud. We just have to turn our lust into desire to serve, and our anger, we can use that for Krishna. It sounds so easy, so simple. But actually implementing that into our daily lives can be sometimes very difficult, it seems. Or it seems like we've been trying for so long and we still are suffering with the same anarthas that we had before. And so for that reason, I want to go on to the third point of today's class, growing pains. Now, these points were given out by Prabhupada Priya, who made the arrangement for all the classes of the year for Krishna House, Srimad Bhagavatam classes. She's very amazing at her service. So she gives us a set of verses. She gives us one verse to focus in on. She gives us a topic for the class. My topic for this class is the suffering of the jiva after birth. And then she goes even further to give us points that we can talk about during the class. So the first one that I mentioned was all suffering is due to ignorance. The second one, transforming our bad qualities by using them in Krishna service, dovetailing. And then the third one that she recommended was growing pains. So I was like, okay, where did that come from, Prabhupada Priya? How do I talk about growing pains? But then I realized that, yeah, it can often seem that we're doing so much, we've been practicing so long, and we're still suffering from the same enemies, the same anarthas. And we're trying to dovetail them, but it sometimes works and it sometimes doesn't work. And Prabhupada says, one of the most used words in all of his books, can anyone tell me what it is? I was going to say, not just Jashtadyumna. Did anyone not hear what he said? Okay, can you tell? Do you guys know what it is? Gradual. It's a gradual process. It's actually very instantaneous when you think of it in the bigger picture of lifetimes and lifetimes. Prabhupada tells us in one lifetime we can make it back home, back to Godhead. Just one? Out of how many billions have we lived? My gosh, it's like a pencil dot on a line. So instantaneous. But while we're here in this one life, it sure feels like it's taking a long time. And so Prabhupada, for our sake, he reminds us it's a gradual process. Prabhupada prescribes, I think, at least 40 years, something like that, of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra 16 rounds every day attentively. After 40 years, then you can become a pure devotee. It feels like a long time. And even pure devotees don't feel like they're pure devotees. So how do we measure that, But we can see from their actions, and we understand in the mood of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who had such humility that he also thought himself low, and all of our great acharyas, none of them thought themselves high. That would defeat the purpose. So we have to understand that it's a gradual process, and actually the goal is not to make advancement. If our goal is to make advancement, then we're never going to make advancement because the only way to actually make advancement is by pleasing Krishna. If our goal is to please Krishna, that is the measure of our advancement. That is the only measure of our advancement, to the extent that we please Krishna. And how do we know if we're pleasing Krishna? To the extent we can please the devotees. To the extent that we get their blessings and that we see a smile on their face. So that's what we have to worry about. This long haul, always looking after a goal thing is not really working in our favor. There's no end goal to bhakti. There's not. Even when you reach the highest stage of prema and you make it back to the spiritual world, we're always going to be doing more and doing better in our service. ABS. I don't remember who said that, but always better service, always better service. It's never ending. The means and the end are the same in that there is no end. You're always just practicing the means. And maybe that can be a little intimidating. Oh my God, I'm never gonna get there. But the thing is, it becomes more and more and more and more and more blissful. It's ever increasingly blissful. And we can experience that in this life when we do devotional service. I know just in my meager 4 years of practicing, I've become a lot more steady in my service and a lot more excited by my service, even though I am struggling every day with the same anarthas that I've always struggled with. But to a lesser degree, for sure. The gradual process works. Anyways, the final point that I'm going to make is from Nectar of Instruction. Just something that can help us when we're experiencing these growing pains. It's from text 3. I don't remember the Sanskrit. If one of you would like to say the Sanskrit, maybe I would remember. Which one? I don't remember. Anyways, I'll just go ahead. The third verse. Maybe. Enthusiasm. Who can share the translation? The execution of pure devotional service. Being enthusiastic, endeavoring with confidence, being patient. Acting according to regulative principles such as Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. Following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas and We almost made it through. Abandoning the association of non-devotees. Undoubtedly assure the complete success to pure devotional service. My gosh, I feel like Nectar of Instruction is, it's one of the books that we should just keep in our back pocket at all time. Isn't you have like a spiral bound copy? Who has one? Draupadi. She has a spiral bound copy of Nectar of Instruction. I think it's something like it's the guideline. I mean, Bhagavad Gita is like the manual for like the how-to manual for this life, but Nectar of Instruction is like the pocket-sized guideline book to how to develop pure devotional service. And so verse 3, the first 3 steps are to be enthusiastic, to have confidence, and to be patient. Enthusiasm. Enthusiasm doesn't just mean I'm excited when I feel it. I'm excited when I feel like it. This is something that my spiritual master has, one time he answered a question that I had. And so it felt like a personal instruction. I asked him how to be enthusiastic when I don't feel like it. And he was quoting Srila Prabhupada. And he told me that even when you don't feel like it, you do it anyways. You be enthusiastic anyways. And the enthusiasm, the natural feeling of enthusiasm will come. He said anybody can do it when you feel it. Anyone can do it when you're having a good day and it's nice outside and your friends are around. Anyone can be enthusiastic in that situation. But the real display of our surrender to Krishna and our desire to please Krishna is if we're enthusiastic when we don't feel like it. And honestly, many of the times we don't feel like it. So if we let ourselves get down every time we don't feel like it, it's going to really affect our progress. We have to be enthusiastic. Fake it till you make it kind of thing. And that was hard for me to understand when I first came to Krishna consciousness. Like, fake, I don't like being fake. How can I don't want to fake anything. But it's not that we're faking it in the way that someone might smile to someone's face and then talk behind their back. It's our true nature, actually. So we're acting in our true nature even though we're not experiencing it. And that's how we come to the point of experiencing it. Okay, so enthusiasm is acting enthusiastic even if I don't feel like it. Number 2 is confidence. Even if I can't see the Lord's purpose or plan, I know that He has one and I know that it's good. And I know that it's what's meant for me and what's going to be best for me. I am completely confident that whatever is going on in my life, as long as I'm continuously serving the Lord with my heart, words, and body, whatever is happening is the Lord's mercy, and whatever is to come from it is the Lord's mercy. Everything is the Lord's mercy. What's the verse? Anyways, it's in the 11th canto, I think. Seeing the Lord's mercy, Daya Bak, that's the end. Nukampam sushamikshamano punjana evatma kritam vipakam hridvagva purbir vidadan namaste jiveta yomukti sadaya bak. Yeah. So we just have confidence that everything is Krishna's mercy. And we continue to serve with that knowledge. And then the last one, patience. Patience means not to lose these 2 things, not to lose our enthusiasm and our confidence, no matter how long it's taking. That's patience. Patience means that we remain enthusiastic and confident no matter how long it's seeming to take. We understand that, okay, it's coming. And that's also in that verse. He says, in the translation, Prabhupada translates that verse, earnestly. There's one word, he says, earnestly. I will earnestly wait for you to bestow your causeless mercy. And that word, earnest, I looked it up in the dictionary. It means with great confidence. Earnest means like eagerness and confidence that it will happen. Like, I know you're going to bestow your causeless mercy upon me. There's no question. And so this is patience, no matter how long it's taking. And it's 8:15. I think that was pretty good. I landed right on the dot. So now we're going to open it up to conversation, to discussion, questions, or comments. I also have, if you guys have trouble thinking of anything, I have a question I could ask you, but it looks like Drishta's ready with a point.
I had a question, not quite sure how I'm going to formulate the question, so it might be a little elongated. You were talking about enthusiasm, and I'm thinking sometimes we're enthusiastic because it makes us feel good. But that's not the enthusiasm that you're trying to cultivate here, is it? So what would be your comment there? Because how do we know we're being enthusiastic in the right way?
Yeah, thank you for asking. This is actually something that it's an ongoing realization that I've been trying to develop within myself. It's something that I've learned more and more deeply as time goes by in my service, particularly because I'm the women's ashram leader here in Philadelphia for the Krishna House, and I was doing that in Philadelphia as well. So there are so many times where we're not getting people moving in, and I'm feeling discouraged, and there's nobody there for Mangal Arti. So I'm like, what the heck? I don't even want to, like, my feet feel like stones. I don't want to dance. I don't want to raise my hand and sing, but I do it anyways. And the reason is because it's a service. It's my service, and it's all of our services, because our enthusiasm enlivens the people around us. And when the people around us are enlivened, it enlivens us. So it's so reciprocal. So it's a service to be enthusiastic. And that's how we know that we're enthusiastic in the right mood. It's great when we're enthusiastic because we feel it. That's also great. But when we're enthusiastic because we are doing it out of a service attitude, I'm gonna dance in Mangal Arti right now, because if I don't, then this is gonna be such a depressing Mangal Arti. Then that's the enthusiasm that we are looking for sometimes, and that's, sometimes that's all we can get. But what I found for myself is that after so many times of dancing, even though I didn't want to, now I want to more often than I used to, even when there's nobody there, even when I'm not feeling so enlivened, the taste comes. Does that answer your question, or give a nice service? Yeah, exactly. You do it out of service. Yeah.
Srila Prabhupada says in the Nectar of Instruction, he defines enthusiasm as endeavoring with intelligence, and the intelligence is how to please Krishna. So in the sense of dancing, I'm going to dance enthusiastically because I'm hoping this will put a smile on Krishna. What can I do right now that maybe will put a smile on Krishna's face? And that's enthusiasm. So sometimes we'll go into the passion and thinking that is enthusiasm. Oh, I'm just doing, I'm doing something. But the intelligence has to be there that is for pleasing Krishna, or it will just fall in short as unsatisfaction. It won't satisfy us. I just wanted to add that, because Srila Prabhupada really defines enthusiasm so nicely in Nectar of Instruction.
Yeah, that's the point.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Premamrta. This was a beautiful class. I loved a lot of really beautiful points. I appreciate what Nanda Braj said on Mataji's question. I was also thinking that enthusiasm looks different for every person. It doesn't always have to be like this, ecstatic. What I think this was a perfect definition. I also want to ask on that, sometimes how do we sometimes we don't feel enthusiastic, or we feel maybe a little bit more alone and or something, and how do we try to not just spiritually bypass I have to be like this, and just actually feel our emotions, because we are emotional beings. So what's that balance between understanding that right now I'm just feeling a certain way? Do I honor that? What do we do about that?
I definitely there is a need that part of being enthusiastic in our service means honoring and respecting our needs, not just the physical demands of the body, like I have to eat, or I'm going to pass out, or I have to sleep, or I'm going to pass out, or whatever. But we have subtle needs also. Sometimes we need to go for a walk and take some space. Sometimes we're feeling so many emotions and we need to process them. And that also, to willfully choose to do that also takes enthusiasm. I'm so enthusiastic, to use that word, I'm so enthusiastic about my spiritual life and about my ability to serve Krishna nicely, that I'm gonna face these negative emotions that I'm feeling right now so that I can process them, so that I can do my service better when it comes time. Because if we spiritually bypass, like you're talking about, we'll have so much pent up resentment, anger building up, and it will come out with devotees. So we have to process it on our own or with somebody who's senior to us who can actually like help us walk through these things. But yeah, we have to look at those things, and that takes enthusiasm, because without the enthusiasm, then we could just decide to numb out, be depressed, not process those things. Yes. Sorry.
Hare Krishna, beautiful class, such a nice discussion. Couple points, just one quote I wanted to share. Just help me. I've never been the best at anything in my life, anything, name it. But I have, with Krishna's mercy, I have moved forward in my life because I've always been the most consistent out of anybody I know, whether it's yoga practice or getting up early or coming to Krishna consciousness. So, but there's a quote that has always helped me, which is, you won't always be motivated, so you must be disciplined. So you create that discipline of, I'm going to get up at this time every day, and some days you're going to feel excited and some days you won't, and you're going to go to Bhagavatam class on these set days, and some days you're really going to connect with the speaker and the topic, and other days you won't, and you're like, oh, well, okay, but you were there. But just by being present consistently, it creates an opportunity for these good qualities to manifest. That was my first point.
Wow.
My second point is I just wanted to share an experience that has helped me recently in the last few months. Kalakanta Prabhu, and I heard Giraj Swami comment on this in a recent class he gave on Bhagavatam 2.8.6. But Kalakanta Prabhu was here a few months ago, and he was talking about, I don't really remember exact topic, but I remember in that moment he was speaking on pleasing Krishna and having the desire to please Krishna. And I raised my hand at the end because I was being honest. And I said, I don't really think I have the desire to please Krishna. I think I either do things out of obligation, because, like I said, the discipline, or because I like to do them. So how do I know that I'm pleasing Krishna? And he said, well, if you're engaging in, like, you love to come to Bhagavatam class, he said, if you're feeling satisfaction from hearing Bhagavatam, Krishna is pleased. You're pleasing Krishna. And then I recently heard Giraj Swami give a class. You can find it on YouTube on 2.8.6. It was a couple weeks ago. And he said the same thing when discussing that purport. He said, if you're feeling satisfaction in your devotional service, it's because Krishna is pleased. It can't be any other way. You can't be having a great time in the kirtan and Krishna not thinking that your kirtan is, Krishna not accepting that, You can't be having these realizations in Bhagavatam class or feeling some sort of interest without Krishna being pleased by it.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on that realization you just shared. I was just thinking that we please Krishna by being pleased by the process that Krishna's given us. By being pleased by coming to Bhagavatam, we're pleasing Krishna. By being pleased to hear Krishna's holy name, we're pleasing Krishna. And the more we become pleased by hearing Krishna's name, the more he becomes pleased. And the more it keeps increasing. And I just really like the point you made about so many nice points. Like you always want fake it till you make it. This reminded me of the Bhagavatam verse, true devotional service is unmotivated and uninterrupted. So, by uninterrupted devotional service, we advance. And I just thought maybe if you comment on this, sometimes it seems that when we talk about being grateful, we talk about appreciating devotees. But oftentimes it seems that appreciation turns into expectation. And expectation turns into a sense of entitlement. As maybe thought maybe you could comment on that.
Well,
feeling grateful Oh, I'm very grateful to you, Prabhu, for your service. I really appreciate what you're doing. And then that appreciation, I expect you to do this.
Yeah.
and then I start feeling I'm entitled to this treatment.
Yeah. Do you want me to comment on it? And is it in relation to anything that I said, or it's just a point that you like that you're bringing into the discussion?
Well, because you talked about gratitude, and I thought maybe how to discriminate between the gratitude that a devotee feels, as opposed to someone whose gratitude is materialistic.
I think maybe could you explain a little bit more? I might be feeling a little.
Well, I was just thinking about how when you're talking about enthusiasm, seems like it's easy to be enthusiastic when we don't have any expectation of enjoying any result from our activity. So I'm just wondering if with gratitude, if gratitude of our appreciation of devotees can be unconditional. Anyone like to comment on that?
Does anyone have any thoughts on his point? Dandabraj?
There should be in our heart a deep gratitude. There should be in our heart a deep gratitude for devotees, but we also have to understand our service. So if we understand who we are and the service of others, appreciating their service, then we can say, oh, this is how I show them this appreciation, or this is how I'm serving them. So knowing who we are in our service is giving us an understanding of how to serve the other devotees. Sometimes that's not saying anything at all and just appreciating them. Sometimes it might be saying something. Sometimes it's always such a personal situation, and it comes with understanding who we are, what our service is, and how our interaction with devotees are. This is the middle platform of devotional service, right? Is that they don't just see themselves on the bottom platform as a uttama adhikari. We just see ourselves, right? We're just acting like, oh, this is who I am, But Madhyama adhikari, we start understanding, okay, who I am in my service and the other person and how we interact with each other. So then the gratitude can be there, but also we know how to act and how to serve. What do you think?
Yes, I agree with what you say, and I think also that being aware that we can be grateful for a devotee for their service, at the same time be aware of how powerful the material energy is. That any one of us can be struck down and illusioned.
Okay, I see where you...
I had a question more on kind of the plot of the story here of the living entity that we're following. And I was a little confused in that the living entity is praying and they're saying, Krishna, I've forgotten you. Krishna, I'm so sorry. Krishna, I don't even want to take birth because I know that I'm going to be illusioned. And then what happens? He takes birth and he becomes illusioned. And so I'm a little lost in how you can pray to Krishna, please protect me. Krishna, I'm so sorry. And then it's like you're back out there, back in the rink.
It sounds like almost pure devotional service at one point.
Well, this is a speculation, but because the living entity was in so much pain while they were in the womb, was their calling out to Krishna just because they didn't want to be experiencing that pain anymore? Is it like, I'm in so much pain right now and I just don't want to, so then in that case, was it really pure devotional service, like to be praying to Krishna in that mood? Because it seems like they just wanted to be not suffering anymore. And then, so Bhaktivinoda describes in his bhajan, I think it's the same one that you sang, otherwise it's another bhajan by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, where he explains, like, you come out of the womb and then all of a sudden your family members think he's so cute, and they're giving you all this attention, and people are throwing you birthday parties, and you become the center of your own universe again. So it's very bewildering. Yeah. those are a couple thoughts that I have. But it's also their karma and previous devotional credits that they may not have earned. Like while they're experiencing so much suffering in the womb, they had enough knowledge to know that they should pray to be relieved of their suffering, but not enough devotional credits to actually enter into devotional service during their life. No.
I'm thinking too that this is a great example of that by our own endeavor we can't, make it. That we have to have Krishna's mercy. So we can be praying so sincerely and so nicely, pure or not, but Krishna's doing ultimately what's best for us. So if there's still some stuff in the heart, then we'll get to go out to the material world and try to fulfill that, and then we'll fail, of course, and maybe then we come with more of a purified heart. But yeah, it really takes Krishna's mercy and the spiritual master's mercy to really take that extra step.
Okay, one last point, and then we'll end the class.
You mentioned about doubting the anarthas. So, as far as I've heard, I think except envy, everything can be doubted in Krishna service. Envy cannot be engaged in Krishna service. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that one, envy, the way that I kind of transformed envy in my heart was because I've heard that there's no envy in the spiritual world, but there's jealousy. Like Radharani, this is very esoteric, Radharani will get jealous of Chandravali. And so, not that we're trying to experience that, but I do recognize that there is a pure form of what we know as envy or jealousy in the spiritual world. And how I've understood it, or how I can kind of purify it in my mind, is that, me and a friend have a competition of who can chant more rounds today, but it's a dance. It's a tough dance because you don't want to actually let envy seep into it, or jealousy or enmity. Yeah.
I know your class is over, but I did just hear a class where Giriraj Swami, he asked Pradyumna, one of Prabhupada's disciples, who is a learned Sanskrit scholar. Prabhupada actually never called him his initiated name. He called him Pandit Ji. But he asked him, he said, okay, so if everything here in the material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world, then what is envy in the spiritual world? And Pradyumna said that in the spiritual world, it's competition for who can serve Krishna best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's hard to, so we should just stick to humbly serving the devotees rather than trying to serve Krishna directly, because otherwise it's hard to dovetail our own envy. We can just serve the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas and be safe. Okay, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol.